What's up, Internet? Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about where we're at right now in terms of the Transparency Act that was passed. So, it's called the Epstein Transparency Act, and I think it's pretty apparent so far that transparency has been an act. I don't think that this administration has been fully transparent, and they have fallen pretty short of the expectations of the voters and the American citizens. So, I mean, at first, this thing, it was a campaign promise that Trump had. He ran on releasing these Epstein documents. And then months into his administration, he started to get hot under the collar towards the Epstein files. And, he was referring to it as a hoax. There's many interviews where he's basically saying, stop talking about this. It's old news. It's a hoax.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
This kind of caused the Republican base to fracture a little bit. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene pretty much leave politics entirely. She's not running for another term. And this is specifically because of how Trump was really downplaying a lot of it. And I mean, like the name calling of Marjorie Taylor Greene, the name calling of Thomas Massie, anybody on the Republican side that was trying to hold Trump's feet to the fire got burned by Trump himself. So anyway, very reluctantly, Trump did sign the Epstein Act after it was passed by Congress. I mean, at that point, what are you going to do? Are you going to veto the bill? Like, he pretty much, his hand was forced into signing this into law. So we know after he signed the Transparency Act that there were 6 million documents total. So the DOJ released 3.5 million documents, which were heavily redacted, okay? We've talked about this in prior videos where emails where people are talking about really shady stuff being redacted, or even just completely benign stuff. Like, there's emails where people are talking about pizza parties and beef jerky and muffins. And for some reason, these names have been removed, even though there is nothing criminal. Like, you're not protecting a witness, you're not protecting a victim. And I mean, technically, you're not really protecting a criminal because all they're talking about is pizza, right? It's just pizza. It doesn't mean anything else, right? Of course. So it's very suspect that so many of these names have been redacted. Now, on top of this 3.5 million documents that were released, there's another 2.5 million documents that have not been released, okay? They were supposed to be released under the Transparency Act. We were supposed to get all of it, right? But instead, what we got was a little bit over half of it. So the remaining 2.5 million documents are being withheld by the Department of Justice. And then instead, what Pam Bondi decided to do was release a document that doesn't summarize the 2.5 million, but it gives a list of all the names that are mentioned in this, in the remaining 2.5 million documents. So, and this list of names is ridiculous. Like, if you look at it, I mean, at first you might be like, oh my gosh, Barack Obama's on here and Michelle Obama's on here and all these famous people are on here. And then you realize Elvis Presley is on here and like dead people, and like celebrities that obviously had absolutely no contact with Epstein. They were simply mentioned somewhere in the files, like maybe, Jeffrey is a big Elvis fan or something and mentioned that in an email, and that's why his name is included. But so anyway, so Pam Bondi released this, half-assed list of remaining celebrities that are in the 2.5 million documents, and then basically said, shut up, the Dow is over 50,000, the economy's doing great, which is complete gaslighting. Like, it seemed like Pam Bondi was kind of trying to pivot into promoting the Trump campaign. She's trying to make things look good in terms of politics for the midterms by constantly diverting into the economy, but it just sounded very crass. So shut up about this serial pedophile who is running a sex trafficking bribery ring. Just focus on the economy. The Dow's doing so good. It's over 50,000. Anyway, so where we're at right now is Congress has been able to view the 3.5 million documents that were released, but Congress is allowed to review the unredacted versions. Now, keep in mind, under this Epstein Transparency Act, Congress is not allowed to view the 2.5 million, which are still being withheld by the Department of Justice. No one is allowed to see those documents except maybe Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and a handful of people. Congress is not even allowed to see the 2.5 million. So what Congress has seen is the 3.5 million unredacted. Now, the problem with the unredacted documents that the Department of Justice has is that a lot of them were redacted by the FBI before it got to the Department of Justice. So in other words, the documents that Congress has been able to review doesn't include almost half of the documents total. The unredacted versions are still redacted because it was the FBI who did it, not the Department of Justice. So any redactions done by the DOJ has been unredacted for Congress. All the rest of it is still redacted. And I would say in general, the population reaction, the general population, it's been very encouraging. I've seen a lot of people wake up. There's a ton of people, and people in my own life where we didn't previously see eye to eye politically are now able to sit down and have civil conversations about what's going on. Because if you read these documents correctly, you realize that the left and the right are both guilty. And I've had a lot of friends that are now sort of on the same page, you know, accusing all politicians of basically being in this group. So that's a very encouraging thing. However, there is still your people that are very, very heavily invested in the left or right. You know, they're treating it like a team sport, not like we're all in this together as Americans, but as in like I'm on team blue, so I don't like Donald Trump, or I'm on team red, so I don't like Bill Clinton, instead of putting it all together and saying, hey, it looks like both sides are screwing us here. But it seems like those people that are heavily invested in their team, these people are starting to sort of wither away a little bit. I think that this has been a massive awakening in terms of breaking the left-right paradigm. Now, you also have some people that are joking about Epstein, and I don't mean anything lighthearted at all, like really dark stuff, like Nick Fuentes saying that, Epstein has aura, like he's someone that we should look up to. The guy had charisma, you know what I mean? He had a lot going for him. He was this, successful financier, billionaire, owned his own island. He was really cool. And for some reason, I don't know if the Groypers are in line with Nick Fuentes on that, but it is very troubling to hear political opinions of people saying that this monster who worshipped Baal, he had riz, he had aura. Like you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. You missed the entire point. And also there's these people, they're talking about this story and how it's being covered up and how it's being diverted. And a lot of people were saying like, this is the story of the year. This is the story of the decade. This is the story of a lifetime. It's not. It's not. What we just learned here has been sort of known and sort of conspiracy theory. I mean, we're talking about thousands of years. This is a cult. This Baal Moloch worshiping cult is now been totally exposed. They're out in the light now. Everyone can see. There is a spotlight shining on them. And this is an ancient cult that goes back for thousands of years. Look up Baal and Moloch. See how far those names go back, right? So this group has been around for a while, and they've had their tendrils wrapped around civilization during that entire time. So this isn't the story of the year. This isn't the story of your lifetime. This is one of the biggest stories that will ever be contained in a history book someday. Okay, this will be like the biggest thing. And that's what worries me. That's one of the things that worries me, is that this is so big and it has exposed so many people. It's exposed politicians on both sides. It's exposed Hollywood. It's exposed mainstream music. It's exposed the entire finance industry, from investors to bankers to insurance to all of it, right? All of these people are in on it. They've been totally exposed. So this is not the story of the year, okay? It is so much bigger than that. And the fact that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are willing to lie, and not only that, but they've lied under oath, okay? Which implies that there is some sort of a criminal conspiracy. I don't think at this point that it can be described as anything else. They're obviously covering down for criminals. They're protecting criminals just in the worst way possible. Like I said, like the gaslighting. Oh, focus over here. Focus on the economy. Now it's like, focus on 3i Atlas. Focus on aliens. Aliens. Now we're going to do alien disclosure. Like, stop talking about the cult of Baal sacrificing babies. There's aliens out there. Like, they're so desperate right now because of how gigantic of a criminal conspiracy has been unmasked. I mean, to the point of, Lex Wexner, giving his testimony. I know this has been all over the news, of his lawyer, coming up to him and whispering, "I'm going to fucking kill you. If you keep talking, I'm going to kill you." Now, this lawyer obviously should be arrested. He should be disbarred. He should be put in a prison. He should be buried under the prison. You're threatening to kill one of your clients while he's giving a testimony? I mean, that is insane. Yeah, so there's a lot of deception, a lot of lies, a lot of covering up. And I mean, like, what have we found out? Like, the elites, okay, they're doing blood transfusions, okay? They are taking younger people with similar genetic profiles and draining their blood and inserting it into them, because the general population doesn't know this, but that is a way to sort of unlock a fountain of youth. If you are constantly injecting yourself with young blood, you are going to feel and look younger, which is why, like, some of these people that get arrested and they go to prison, in a couple years, they end up looking like zombie vampires. Like, all of the youthfulness is gone. Now, all of a sudden, they're super gray and super wrinkly, and they look their age. They look like they're 85 now instead of looking 60. The reason why they were looking 60 is because of the blood transfusions. There's emails in there talking about mass sterilization from royalty. They're just casually talking about the mass sterilization that's going on, and how the mass sterilization is not even a big deal because we have designer babies. We'll make babies in a lab. We don't need to reproduce naturally anymore. These are literally mentioned in the emails. So they're talking about mass sterilization. There's a lot of different emails talking about torture, talking about murder, talking about disposing of bodies. I saw a very clear email from a hitman talking about, like, do you want me to do her or torture her? Like, do you want me to put her in the ground, or do you want me to torture her? And then there was like another case of this spy got caught doing something, and they're like, should we torture her? Like, so it's like the most depraved, darkest stuff. Not only that, they're having hunts on Epstein Island and Little St. James, and Jeffrey Epstein is talking in the emails about how they're using nothing but N-words, and they're just letting them loose on Little St. James, and then a bunch of rich guys go out with sniper rifles and hunt them for sport. Hunt them for sport. That's in the emails, okay? Now, this doesn't even include the 2.5 million, okay? And not only haven't we gotten the 2.5 million, Pam Bondi has not interviewed a single victim. Okay, that came out in Congress during her testimony. She did not interview one single victim. What does that tell you? There's clearly a cover-up with all of this crazy stuff going on. Yes, there's emails talking about sacrifices. I've talked about it in prior videos. They're talking about sacrificing. All of the code words, pizza, beef jerky. Look into beef jerky. What beef jerky do you know where people eat it 3 times a day? They get addicted to it, and it has to be transported on ice. And it's stored in a freezer. It's not beef jerky. They're not talking about beef jerky. Okay? And if you piece the pieces together, how they walk the beef jerky to the kitchen, they're not walking a cow to the kitchen. They're walking a child. They're walking a person into the kitchen to be ground up and turned into food. Okay? So, and it's like, the pizza code words and a lot of the code words that came out during the Clinton emails, the Pizzagate conspiracy theory or whatever. Like, yeah, that is a code word that they use, and they use it very regularly. They talk about, pizza that's 2 years old, and, pizza that, like torturing pizza is something that's mentioned, which, by the way, very interesting. On day one, I looked up the word pizza. That was the first thing that I looked up on the Department of Justice website. That was what I led off with. And there was 911 documents with the word pizza in it. Go to the Department of Justice website now and look up pizza. There's not 911 documents. So they've taken them away. They've taken away several emails referencing pizza. They've taken away pictures of meat. Why would you take away pictures of T-bone, of lumbar cuts off of a cow? Like, why would you scrub those? Like, you released it, and then you're like, oh no, we need to delete this. Why would they say, oh no, we need to delete a picture of a bunch of T-bone steaks? Because they're not T-bone steaks. Those are people. Okay? They're busted. And then, like, you have all these different celebrity rabbit holes. I'm not going to go down all of them. But obviously, Bill Gates. I mean, one of the biggest things that really concerns me is the fact that during COVID, or before COVID, sorry, in 2015, Jeffrey Epstein gave keynote speeches at the World Health Organization about future pandemics and how to handle them. Jeffrey Epstein was at the WHO advising these people how we're going to deal with future pandemics. Now, obviously, it has to do with him being tied in with Bill Gates, but obviously, Jeffrey Epstein was doing a lot of the planning leading up to COVID. If you don't know what Event 201 is, I highly recommend you look up Event 201. I'm sure even ChatGPT or Grok will tell you what Event 201 was, okay? And it was specifically had to do with a coronavirus. So definitely worth looking into. And I mean, there's one of the emails where he's talking to somebody. People speculate it could be Bill Gates. They don't actually know who it is. But like, he ends the email talking about, I hope that we can pull this off. I hope that we can pull what off? Okay, they're talking about pandemic preparedness. I hope that we can pull this off. Maybe, like, I hope we can pull off the preparation. But come on. Come on now. Come on. We don't all know what happened during COVID, but most of us do, okay? But anyway, yeah, so the whole distraction, the economy, pay attention to that, stupid. Who cares about these kids being trafficked and imprisoned and raped and murdered and eaten? Who cares? Just imagine what's in those 2.5 million documents. Pam Bondi says there's a bunch of, children, really gross stuff with children. I'm sorry, like the 3.5 million, there already is some really disgusting stuff. One thing that you can do if you're interested in looking at these documents and not going through the Department of Justice website, which is clearly, it's not very good for searching. It's not very well optimized. But you can go to Jmail, okay, which will organize Epstein's emails into something like a GUI that looks very similar to Gmail, so it's very easily to navigate. There's also Jefftube, okay? The thing about Jefftube is I've looked it up on Brave, I've looked it up on Google, I've looked it up on DuckDuckGo. You can't find Jefftube by just searching for it. It will pull up a bunch of articles talking about Jefftube, but you're not going to actually find a link to the website. So what you need to do is use Yandex, Yandex, Yandex. If you're ever looking for something that Google is censoring, go to Yandex because they're not going to censor it. They're based out of Russia, and that's the reason why they're not going to censor it. So keep that in mind. It'll probably go away one day as a website. But if you're trying to find a lot of this stuff on Google, you're not going to. Yandex. So Jmail, Jefftube, check those out. Now, what was the entire purpose of releasing this list? Not the list, but these documents. What's the entire purpose of it? My theory, and this is kind of my theory, is the timing of it. Okay, now we're in a state where AI has become pretty advanced. Okay, but I'm not talking about ChatGPT, and I'm not talking about Leonardo. I'm not talking about image generation. I'm talking about Palantir. I'm talking about the surveillance aspect of AI. So at this point, a lot of law enforcement across the country are using Palantir. Palantir is now trying to get their hooks in everything. And they're right now they're coming for Discord. So just keep in mind that in the very near future, if all of this goes through with Palantir, Palantir is going to be able to see every single thing that you ever say on Discord, and it's going to go into a law enforcement database. Okay? So Palantir has its hooks in us, in our society. They are capable of, it's a connected network of all of your social media, everything that exists about you. But also like the traffic cameras, different surveillance cameras around the country are all connected into Palantir. And now what they're trying to do is pull social media companies all the way into it. Like I said with Discord, like they want to see every message. They want to know what you're talking about. So my theory is that this document release was one of these. It was one of these. The elite was doing that right in your face. All of you guys that are, hoping that the Department of Justice is going to start prosecuting people. The documents, they've been out for 2 weeks. Why aren't they prosecuting anybody? No one's been prosecuted yet. Even Prince Andrew, he was detained and he was released within the same day. So, in America, when are we going to see justice in America? It doesn't feel good for me to say this, but justice isn't coming. Let go of it. It's not coming. The reason why justice isn't coming is because these documents were sat on by the federal police. The FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigations. That is our national police force. They've had these documents and they've done nothing, okay? It's been 7 years of them having this latest batch of documents. And I mean, Epstein stuff goes all the way back to 2006 when he first got arrested. So they have known this entire time. Okay, not just the stuff that you and I are poking around and uncovering. They know a lot more. There's a lot more in those 2.5 million documents, and it's the Department of Justice and it's the FBI doing the redactions and doing the cover-up. So guess what? If our nation's law enforcement are protecting these people, there's not going to be any arrests. If they ever do any arrests, it's going to be ceremonial. It's going to be minor. There might be a fall guy. There might be 1 or 2 fall guys. That's going to be the extent of it, though. If you even see that, there's not going to be justice. So, like I said, I think that this entire thing is it's the elite saying this: checkmate, game over. You want to make a move? Here's what the chessboard looks like. Here it is. You're in a corner, there's a queen next to you, and a rook covering the queen, and a legion of troops behind him. It's over. You're already in checkmate. And I hate to be black-pilled, but that, I'll say in terms of seeking justice through the system, it's not going to happen, okay? And then even if any of you guys are getting some weird thoughts, you're not going to be able to do that either. Because of Palantir, because of the control grid, because of the phone in your pocket. That is literally the television set that was in everybody's home in 1984. It's in your pocket. It's not in your home. Big Brother is in your pocket, and it's listening to you. It's watching you. It's what now it's tracking your heartbeat. It's tracking all kinds of stuff that you guys willingly let it track. So everyone's being spied on, and it is a collective grid of spying. It's a web. Like you woke up and you're in a straitjacket. You're in handcuffs in a straitjacket in a prison cell that's like out in space or something. Like you're not escaping. You're not going to be able to fight back. Which I'm not trying to be blackpilling, and I'm not trying to discourage you. I just think that this is the reality of the situation. The documents that they've released, at this point, there's nothing that can be done about any of these people being held in captivity. And Epstein's not the only one. Epstein was not the only one with access to all of these politicians and celebrities and has a bunch of sex slaves on different islands. He's not the only one. They've kind of revealed, this is what we do. What are you going to do about it? That's really what it is. What are you going to do about it? And like I said, I highly encourage you not to do anything about it because you're gonna get caught, and it just would not be a very smart thing. And I believe another reason why these documents got released is that they wanted to identify and isolate people that are willing to look at them, people that are willing to change their minds, people that are now woken up, okay? Because if you've woken up and you're watching my videos or you're watching any other videos on the internet talking about these topics, it's in my opinion that I think that they are putting everybody on a list. They're tracking your IP address, they know exactly who you are, and they're compiling a list of people that are awake to this stuff because, you know, I guess they see us as a threat or a danger or something, or we could potentially be a threat in the future. I think that this is meant to identify us, which sucks for me because, you know, I'm out here speaking loudly about it. I don't really have a lot of people that I'm speaking to, but I'm still, I couldn't just sit on the sidelines and pretend like this isn't happening because it is soulless, it's disgusting, and it's evil. This Baal and Moloch worship. You know, it goes all the way back to biblical times. Baal and Moloch worship, okay? The golden calf. They weren't just worshiping a golden calf when Moses came down with the 10 Commandments. They weren't worshiping a golden calf, okay? That's not Baal worship. What they were doing with the golden calf, you're just going to have to look that up for yourself. And yes, it involves sacrificing, ritual sacrifice, okay? So it's almost like I've kind of thought of this analogy. If any of you have seen, you know, Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, you know, they talk about how they got this intelligence leak, right? The rebels, you know, Han and Luke and everybody, they meet at the rebel fleet. And, you know, Mon Mothma and General Madine are, you know, they're given this briefing about how they're going to take down this new Death Star. And they're talking about how they got this intelligence release, and many Bothans died to bring them this information as well, which, you know, you can think of the Bothans as, you know, your Isaac Cappies and other whistleblowers throughout time that have been silenced. And we've kind of always suspected it was this cult that did it. Now it's almost undeniable that the cult does have a very tight system of information security that involves potentially killing people. So they brought the rebels, or, you know, the vulnerabilities of the Death Star are leaked, and, you know, they're just like, you know, the Empire's like, oh, you know, all you got to do is just like bring your fleet to Endor, fly a couple of fighters in, maybe fire a couple concussion missiles at the core, and then boom, we're revealing to you everything. Yeah, like now come and stop us, basically. Like it was leaked to the Rebel Alliance. Like the Bothans did die, like leaking the information here and there, but it was leaked to them. And then what did Emperor Palpatine say? Like, basically, you're already screwed. When the Rebel fleet arrived from Sullust to Endor, what was waiting for them? I mean, not the entire, I don't know how big the Imperial fleet is in Star Wars, but a crap load of ships were waiting for them. And that's the whole famous line. It's a trap. Like, we were lured in. They gave us intelligence, making us think that, we're going to actually be able to do something about this. But we're not. It was a trap. These are insurmountable odds. We're not going to be able to beat this fleet. And it's like, as soon as the ships come out of hyperspace, the deflector shield is up on Endor. And they're already being jammed, right? Like Wedge Antilles is like, "Are you sure? I don't have any reading at all. I don't see anything." So like the Empire set this trap, and then the rebels came and acted on it. It's already too late by that point, though. The Empire was already set up. Think of it like a chessboard. Like, you're already in checkmate. Now, obviously, it's a fantasy movie, and the good guys win, and they pull through despite the odds of, like the amount of stormtroopers that they were outnumbered with on Endor. Come on, they got defeated by a bunch of teddy bears and stuff, and they did manage to deactivate the shield and blow up the Death Star. So it's like the happy ending version of what we're in, but it's very similar to where it's been leaked, it's out in your face, but if you dare act on it, it will be a trap. It will be a trap. That being said, this has been very, very dark. Just all of this stuff in general. And, it's led me to sort of circle back and really embrace Christianity. Like, I have been a very lukewarm Christian up until about 2 weeks ago. And seeing that these guys are like very, very seriously worshiping and, sacrificing for Baal and Moloch, like, it's like, what else are you going to do at this point? Like, are you just going to stay on the fence forever? Like, no. I personally have gone back to reading the Bible. Actually, I'm having James Earl Jones read it to me, which is pretty awesome. But I'm not trying to preach, but this is sort of an opportunity for anybody to convert back into whatever faith, because the lines have been drawn in the sand. Okay? And the power structure that rules us is evil. So if you want to join a community of good, Christianity or whatever religion kind of calls out to you, where you see that good energy, it's probably a good idea to, ally yourself with the forces of good, at the very least. So on that note, I'm going to end this video with a quote from Revelations 3:16, because this is very important. "So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth." What is that? That is Jesus criticizing the church at the time for complacency, for being spiritually stagnant, and for being too comfortable in the face of evil.